Joining me now is the CES MMA heavyweight champion. He defeated Travis Wiuff at CES 48 in the main event this past weekend to win the title. It is none other than Greg Rebello here on the show for the very first time. Greg, how are you? Thanks for the time.
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. I feel like this is long overdue. I've wanted to have you on for a while. It just hasn't worked out. So I guess what better time to have you on right after winning the heavyweight title at CES. 23 seconds was all it took. As you said just off air a second ago, did not take long whatsoever. Are you surprised at all that Wiuff, despite being well past his prime? I mean, that's something to keep in mind for sure. But are you surprised he didn't put up a little bit more of a fight?
Yeah, I know. I was kind of shocked. That's like the first thing I said to my coaches, I mean, granted, yeah, he is past his prime, but he still won, 7 of his last 9 fights. He still beat some pretty decent guys. And I just, I don't know. I thought it was going to be a little bit different. But I definitely had a huge speed advantage, especially with my feet. I noticed that right off the bat. His shot was slow. I'm very fast for a heavyweight, but it was a lot slower than I anticipated. And it was pretty easy to catch him on the way in, so. Yeah, I was a little shocked, but I'll take it.
You've had 32 fights of your own, so it's not like I guess you're inexperienced compared to him, but you're still a veteran of the sport. How did you prepare for a guy with almost 100 pro fights? Was that, obviously different than what you're used to per se, but was it different as far as how you prepared for him?
Well, not really, because, when you see a guy like that, he's won 75 fights, so it's kind of one of those things where I knew he was going to stick with the look at him there. He's not going to come out in a karate stance and start throwing spinning back kicks at me. I knew it was just going to be the same old guy because it's worked for him. He's won, 75 fights in his career. So I knew that he was going to be the exact same guy. I knew he was going to I figured he was going to throw a couple big punches and then just shoot in on me. That's usually what he does. But, I knew exactly what to expect.
Right after the fight on Access TV, the commentator suggested that, hey, he's still, Wiuff's only a couple away from 100 pro fights. That's quite the achievement to hit. And so they basically suggested maybe it wouldn't be the worst idea to take another few fights before retiring to hit that milestone. Do you think, though, Wiuff should retire the damage he's taken? He's 39 years old, I believe, and he has so many fights. Do you think he should step away?
Yeah, I just don't think the guy has anything left to prove. It's kind of all on him. Me, I would never have that many fights. That's just crazy. You would have to stay way too busy to be able to get to that number, But yeah, I don't think he has anything left to prove. The guy's fought for every major organization on the planet, and he's had a lot of success doing it. I know he's a high school teacher. He coaches wrestling. He's got good stuff going for him. I don't think there's any need for him to fight anymore.
What was it like fighting on short notice? Was it difficult? Because, of course, Matt Bissett's next title defense was supposed to headline this card last weekend, but as we all know, he got the step up to the UFC on short notice for the Boston card last month, which you were at. Was it difficult, training only for about 3 weeks notice or so? Was that not a big deal, or how did that go?
With me, I never really stopped training, but if you can't get yourself in shape in 3 weeks, you shouldn't be fighting. I was a little heavier. I was probably about 10 pounds heavier than I normally am. So that was the only issue. I didn't feel sluggish, I felt fine, but I usually like to fight at 10 pounds lighter than I was. But no, it's not really that big of a deal. Like I said, I'm always, when you're in fight camp, the training intensity goes up a little bit, but I'm always doing something. I'm always repping. I'll spar out of camp once a week, and it's really light. Obviously you pick the intensity up during camp. So yeah, would it have been better if I had 8 weeks instead of 3? Yeah, obviously, but it doesn't take long for me to get in shape. 3 weeks is fine. Obviously I was a little heavier, like I said, but that's fine.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was your 15th fight for CS, was it not?
I believe 15th or 16th, one of the two.
Nonetheless, you are probably have the most fights in the promotion out of anybody. If not, you're right up there. You're a veteran of New England MMA. You're a veteran of just the sport in general. How good does it feel to have this belt finally around your waist?
Yeah, no, it was definitely important. I had that first fight with Ashley Gooch, and I was dominating that fight. I was winning every round, and I just got caught with a good shot because I made a stupid mistake. So that was frustrating, having that fight and then, being pretty much in control of it and then losing. But, I got a lot of momentum back. I got on the Contender Series. And, I figured that I would get another shot. I think I had gone 3-0 or 4-0 in CES since the Gooch fight. So, I knew that was going to be, they were going to offer me that fight. And I didn't think it was going to be this one. Matt Bissett pulled out because he gets signed by the UFC. So they had a short notice fight, and they said, hey, we'll put it together for a title because Giuliano, who's a good friend of mine and one of my training partners, are retired. And, so everything kind of fell into place, and it was perfect timing.
Well, I feel like this is a long time coming because no disrespect to Ashley Gooch or as you just mentioned, Giuliano, who just retired as the CES champion. Whenever someone would bring up the CES heavyweight division or I would think about it, I'm always thinking about Greg Rebello. Like, I feel like your name, comes up before anybody else's, and for you not to have had that title up until now, it just seemed crazy to me. Am I accurate there? Like, was this a long time coming?
No, yeah, for sure. You know what I mean? Obviously I've had a lot more fights with CES than Banana or the Gooch, so I think a lot more people know me, and I've put on some of their most exciting fights for the promotion's history. So, yeah, I think most people, when they think about the heavyweights, my name definitely is at the top of that list.
As far as what is next for you, do you want to defend the title? I'm sure you will if asked, but I mean, also, of course, as we all know, last summer you were on the Contender Series, fell short to Zuan Yanwu, but you were arguably, like, if you had won that fight in impressive fashion, would have got a call up. So you were one fight away from the UFC. You certainly, with 2 fights since then, 2 wins, that is, you're certainly not far away. Do you want another shot on the Contender Series? It seems like they're coming back this summer. Do you want just a direct call up to the UFC? What do you see happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely have a lot of momentum, and it's definitely, 2 knockouts in the first round of the row against really tough guys. Obviously is puts a lot of momentum in my favor. Obviously, I mean, for anybody, I would obviously love to get a call up to the UFC or the Contender Series. But, we'll see what happens if I have to defend my belt, before the summer, and then I'll do that. But the Contender Series, yeah, it'll be perfect. I'd love another opportunity on that. That was a lot of fun. And, we'll see what happens.
I want. Can you sort of talk about the Contender Series a bit more? How was that experience? Obviously, didn't go your way, so wasn't like the best fight for you, or most. Obviously that wasn't great. Of course, you don't want to lose. But as far as the preparation going into that, did it feel like a bigger fight just because you knew you were potentially one away from the UFC call? You had the media day, or not media, but you did media in Vegas and went there, photo shoot, things like that. Did it feel bigger? How was it overall?
No, not really, man. It kind of felt like a CES fight, to be honest with you. I mean, we went there, we took pictures, we did interviews. And the crowd's really small. It's not like you're going into some huge venue, like in Vegas at the MGM or something. It's just like, it's really just personal friends of the fighters that are there. There was only maybe a handful, I would say, maybe a couple hundred people tops there. So, it wasn't like difficult. We fought early in the afternoon. And it wasn't in my backyard. That was the biggest thing. I had to travel to go to the fight. But for me, it's like, I don't know, I never let crowds or anything like that bother me. You know what I mean? That doesn't faze me at all. Just a fight's a fight. It didn't go my way, man. I fought a really tough guy, and I felt like I was starting to get momentum in that fight. And, again, he's a powerful striker. He caught me with a good shot, and that was it. I was fine. I got right up, and you move on, man.
What was it like having to actually travel to Vegas for that fight? Because obviously CES is based in England, where you're from. You don't really have to travel much to fight usually for them. What was that like fighting in Vegas?
Well, obviously, I think anybody prefers to fight at home. I mean, Twin River Casino is only a couple exits from my house, so it's pretty easy. But I do like to travel. I was able to all my coaches, all prep up in Vegas. We had a lot of fun with it. My whole family, everybody came out, so it was a good experience.
Fair enough. You mentioned earlier when we were talking about your last opponent, Travis Wiuff, that with him having 100 fights, that's something you'll never get to. You don't want to fight 100 times, and I certainly don't blame you. At 32 pro fights and 35 years of age, have you considered retirement? Not considered, but is retirement ever on your mind? Has it ever been? Or are you just sort of focusing on the fights up until you don't really want to do it anymore?
Yeah, with me, like, I kind of just take it one step at a time. Like, I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and when I stop having fun and I stop enjoying going to training and stuff, that's when I'll stop, I see a lot of guys that, I feel like as soon as they start getting to the UFC or they get these huge fights, that it just, it turns into a job, and it kind of becomes annoying to them. You know what I mean? Like, they don't fall in love with training. They just kind of go through the motions, just to get in shape and fight. Like, with me, if that ever happens, I'll stop. I'll just be a coach, and I'm having so much fun doing it right now. So, I mean, I don't think about retirement or anything like that. I take it one step at a time.
35 is often sort of when fighters exit their prime. I think it's different for the heavyweight division with, let's be honest, the UFC heavyweight division particularly has a lot of old fighters, Fabricio Verdum, Mark Hunt, all over 40. Do you feel like you're getting better? Do you feel like you're improving as a fighter?
No, absolutely. And the biggest thing, too, is, like you said, being a heavyweight. The weight cuts and stuff really hurt guys, I think. And, I don't know. It's definitely, like, it's weird because a lot of guys wrestled or they did jiu-jitsu their whole life. I came from playing hockey. Like, I just don't have a lot of the miles on me. I started fresh literally when I was 23, 24 years old. And, I wasn't training correctly until I was probably 28. So I just don't have a ton of mileage on my body, and I didn't have any amateur fights. But if you look at the first, like, when I went into the Ultimate Fighter, I was on season 11. I was 11 or 12-2. And I had never fought in a cage, and I had never fought 3 5-minute rounds. So a lot of my fights that were professional back in Massachusetts, they had different rules. So, I just didn't have a lot of miles on my body, and I still don't.
What was it like starting in MMA relatively late compared to others? Because, again, as you said, you came from playing hockey as a kid, and you didn't get into MMA till, as you said, 24, and training correctly till 28. And let's be honest, that's fairly late. That was only 7 years ago or so, where some fighters have been doing, say, karate since they could barely walk, or wrestling, or taekwondo, things like that, since when they're before a teenager. How was it getting into the sport compared to others pretty late?
Well, I was always a good athlete, so I picked it up fast. And it's kind of one of those things, you just got to surround yourself with good people and good coaches and good training partners. And, as long as you do that, I kind of pick things up fast. I trained right off the bat with a lot of guys that were in the UFC, like George Rivera and Marcus Davis and Kenny Florian and Patrick Cote. I was surrounded by guys like that right off the bat. So I think I picked things up pretty quickly. And, going from their experience and training with them, it was able to help me out a lot.
So you don't feel like you were ever, earlier on in your career, at a disadvantage because you didn't, say, grapple when you were 5 years old or wrestle when you were 7. You picked it up quickly.
Yeah, I definitely picked it up quick. But, and the thing is I like fell in love with the sport, so I wanted to learn. So I put in a lot of time in the mats and a lot of time in the gym,
As we talked about, with the heavyweight division in the UFC having fairly older competitors, it's not like, if you were, say, a flyweight, maybe we're saying, okay, you're past your prime, but in this case, as a heavyweight, that's not necessarily the case. That in mind, even still, do you feel like the UFC, like your age of 35, has affected your UFC chances because they like to pick up the young guys? They like to pick up the guys who are going to be around for another 15 years, and I don't think we can say that about you.
Yeah, I don't know, because, they signed Rashad Coulter, who was another guy that fought on Access TV, who was older than me. They signed Zoo, the kid that I lost to, who was a year older than me. And if you look at, so last year, the champion at 185, 205, and heavyweight were all older than me. Michael Bisping had the belt, DC was the champ, and Stipe Miocic, all three, they're all older than I am. So it's tough to say. A lot of people said that to me. And Tyron Woodley, too, he's 35. There's a lot of guys that are older, so a lot of people are like, oh, just the heavyweights are older. It's like, no, not really. Those guys are older as well. So, going on, I think it depends on, how you perform, and obviously if they like you, they'll give you a shot.
Why do you feel it's taken so long? Is it so if it's not you getting to the sport late, is it just every so often you'd have a setback? I mean, you've had winning streaks. Why do you think it's taken this long?
No, it's definitely setbacks. I've had good winning streaks, and then I've had big fights where I've lost. Like the Gooch fight, I had a 4-fight win streak. I lost that fight. That was a setback. And I won a couple. I got on the Contender Series, and then I had that setback. Now I've won a couple. I've got this belt, and then, I'm expecting a big fight probably to come. And, we'll go from there. But it's definitely the setbacks, you know what I mean? That's just I've had some big fights that I've lost.
So you took no damage really at all against VU last weekend. When do you want to get back in there? Do you have a month in mind, any timeline for your return for your next fight, whether it be a CES title defense, in the Contender Series in summer, UFC? Do you have a timeline for when you'd like to fight again?
No, not really. I banged my hand up a little bit, so I'm just kind of gonna let that rest and heal up, and then I'll be right back in the gym. And I'll be ready if a short notice fights come, for the UFC or whatever. Then I'll be ready for that. But if not, then it's probably going to be CES. I'm not sure. Their next show is probably not till April or so. So, we'll see how my injuries feel, and then we'll go from there.
I gotta ask you and end this interview with a little Super Bowl talk. Unfortunately, the New England Patriots fell up short last night at the Super Bowl in Minneapolis. What can you say about that? How devastated are you?
Oh, it's horrible. Our defense was. It was a fun game to watch if you weren't a fan of either team. It was a lot of offense and not a lot of defense, and there was no punting or special teams. But yeah, it was frustrating. You know what I mean? Tom Brady played one of the best games in Super Bowl history. He threw for over 500 yards, but our defense is that was the thing. We couldn't stop Philadelphia, and they blew it. So, yeah, it's frustrating. There's a lot of upset people in New England this morning.
I assume you saw probably some social media posts as far as the celebration/riots in Philly. How crazy is that?
Oh, yeah, it's a little crazy, but I guess that was their first Super Bowl, right?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to say I can blame them, but I mean, I was expected, I guess. Philadelphia's a crazy town, so I guess those people are a little excited.
For sure. And finally, Boston Bruins. As you said, you started, you played hockey as a kid. That's where you got your roots from as far as sports go and athletics. Boston Bruins are number 4 in the league right now. We're just, I guess, a few months away from playoffs still, but. I'm a Winnipeg guy, so I'm a fan of the Jets, and lo and behold, the Winnipeg Jets are number 3 in the league right now, 1 more point than you guys. That's incredible. What are your thoughts on the Bruins right now, though?
Well, I think the Bruins are the worst team in the league. I think that we have so much young talent, but the guys are really young. I did not expect this. I don't think anybody in the Boston area expected this, for them to be this good. We have one good line of veterans, and everybody else is really young. I think we're all in shock, to be honest with you. You guys have a killer squad, man. Winnipeg's a really good team. Bufflin's one of my favorite players in the league. You guys are really deep, and I honestly think this is, within the next few years, it's going to be your year to either go to the Cup or win it. But the Bruins, my hopes aren't too high because, they always let us down starting within the next few months. So that's kind of what everybody's expectations are right now. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, with the Jets, I'm used to them just not doing good at all. I'm used to calling the Winnipeg Jets a terrible team, and I actually went to the Vegas game last week, and on the way home, I don't follow hockey all the time. I'm a casual fan. I'll watch it every now and then and go to a couple games a season. So on the way home, I knew the Jets were doing well this year. I didn't realize they were doing this good. And so on the way home, I'm in the car, pull up the standings on my phone and see that they're number 3. And I was shocked. I would have guessed maybe number 10, maybe halfway, number 13. But for them to be doing that good, it was shocking. But the Bruins, they didn't make the playoffs last year, which doesn't happen all the time. And so I guess go us.
No, we made the playoffs last year. We just got eliminated in the first round.
Oh yeah, I was looking. I pulled up the last year bracket because I couldn't remember, and I guess I'm blind. Yeah, they're clearly here, but they were eliminated by Ottawa in round 1. So, but hopefully, best of luck to the Bruins.
Well, they're going to blow it. I'm not going to lie, they're going to blow it. But I think that Winnipeg is going to be a team that's going to surprise a lot of people. You guys have a ton of young talent. Yeah.
Although the Bruins, I feel like with the Bruins, since you guys have the number of cups, you won the cup, I don't know, in 2013, 24. When did you guys last win it? I'm trying to remember.
2011.
Okay,
2011 we won it.
It's actually been a while, but yeah. So I guess we've seen a lot of teams. LA Kings were doing well for a number of years. They won the cup 2 out of 3 or 4 years, and they didn't make the playoffs last year. So interesting time for the NHL.
No, it is. I love it.
Well, Greg, thank you for taking the time. Really do appreciate it. Congratulations once again on the victory last week and over Travis Wiuff at CES 48. Before I let you go, remind my audience where they can find you on social media, and if there's anybody you'd like to thank or you give a shout out to, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. You can find me. My Twitter handle is GRebello73, and my Instagram is GRibs MMA 23. And I just want to thank you for having me on, and thank all my teams, my coaches, my fans, and everybody that watches and listens, man. Thank you guys.